Many direct-to-video stars had a moment in their careers when they could have made it big, but the films that could have launched them to greater heights either turned out to be low quality or went unnoticed by audiences for some other reason. This isn't even about the actor's talent, charisma, or ability to toss villains over their shoulder on screen. Those things are always subjective, and often work against even the actors who did manage to escape B-movie territory. Today, let's talk about a few B-movie actors who had a shot, because they had films that actually made it to the big screen. A lot of people probably remember actor Michael Paré from a handful of solid movies in the 1980s and 1990s. At some point, though, he faded from quality productions and got stuck in projects that rarely score above a 2 or 3 out of 10 on review sites. But back in the early 80s, when Michael's career was taking off, he was often mentioned alongside other young rising stars like Tom Cruise, Matt Dillon, Mickey Rourke, and Emilio Estevez. Producers noticed him after Eddie and the Cruisers, where he starred with Tom Berenger. It was a small indie film with a $1 million budget that made $5 million in US theaters. It was only his third role, but after that, 25-year-old Michael Paré was getting offers from major Hollywood studios left and right. Michael Paré probably made a mistake by signing on 2 big projects at once. The first was likely his best-known film, Streets of Fire, directed by 48 Hours director Walter Hill. Despite a solid budget for the time, the action movie flopped at the US box office. His next project was even bigger, The Philadelphia Experiment. For 1984, its $22 million budget was massive. For comparison, Back to the Future cost $3 million less, and Raiders of the Lost Ark had a similar budget. Unfortunately for Paré, it did even worse than Streets of Fire. The film flopped hard and got panned by both critics and regular moviegoers. The failure of the Philadelphia Experiment seriously hurt New World Pictures, and the company went bankrupt soon after. Major Hollywood studios started avoiding Paré, believing audiences just didn't like him. Michael Paré started taking roles in low-budget comedies that, due to their quality, never made it to theaters. His only relative success during that time was Roland Emmerich's sci-fi movie Moon 44. The film did well in Europe and helped launch Emmerich's Hollywood career, eventually leading to Independence Day and The Day After Tomorrow. But the success of Moon 44 did nothing for Paré's career. When he returned to the US, he kept showing up in straight-to-video films. His early and mid-90s work was still decent by B-movie standards, but by the late 90s, Paré was starring in flat-out trash and taking minor roles in Uwe Boll's films, mostly because the two had become friends. Now in his 60s, Michael occasionally shows up in the background of major Hollywood movies. Other than that, his career consists of small parts in films that are mediocre, even by B-movie standards. Early in his career, Michael Dudikoff had a few films that actually got theatrical releases. Sure, they were small, but unlike many other actors, Dudikoff didn't go straight to video. His big break came with American Ninja. During early development, the studio wanted Chuck Norris for the lead, but Chuck turned it down. He didn't want to run around in a mask. After that, the studio held a big casting call, which Dudikoff attended. With a budget of just $1 million, the movie pulled in $11 million at the box office. Jean-Claude Van Damme started his climb to fame with similar numbers. Though a few more of Dudikoff's films hit theaters, the first American Ninja remained his only major hit. The sequel wasn't a flop either, but due to a bunch of production issues and a way smaller budget, Dudikoff decided to bail on the series. Officially, he left because he didn't want to film in apartheid-era South Africa. Unofficially, the real reason might have been the budget. It was even smaller than the second film's. At the time, Dudikoff still believed he could build a more successful career, and didn't want to be associated with something that cheap. To be fair, American Ninja 3 was a box office bomb with awful reviews, so it looks like Dudikoff made the right call. But his other projects didn't fare much better. All of his movies flopped, failing to earn back even their modest budgets. Platoon Leader, Midnight Ride, and River of Death all got theatrical releases in the US, but none of them found an audience. After that, studios stopped casting Michael in films intended for theatrical release, forcing him to reprise his role in the fourth American Ninja, which also flopped. As a result, the actor got stuck in B-movies, and not the good kind. Most of Dudikoff's films have a rating of around 4 out of 10. Brian Bosworth wasn't the most famous actor of the 1990s, but there's one film of his that a lot of people have probably seen. Stone Cold. the action movie that hit theaters in 1991 with Lance Henriksen as the main villain. Back then, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone were at the peak of their fame, and actors like Van Damme and Steven Seagal were popping up around them like mushrooms after the rain. Naturally, there weren't enough of these guys to go around, so studios tried to find the next big action star wherever they could. At one point, their choice landed on Bosworth, a professional athlete. That's basically how careers like The Rock's and John Cena's got started. For Brian Bosworth, Stone Cold was his film debut. It earned him $500,000 right out of the gate. For 1991, the film had a solid budget of $25 million. It was directed by Craig R. Baxley, who a couple years earlier had made I Come in Peace, starring Dolph Lundgren. But the attempt to create another Schwarzenegger or Stallone completely tanked. In the US, the movie made just $9 million, way below expectations. Bosworth even got a Golden Raspberry nomination and quickly shifted into the B-movie world. During the 1990s, he still showed up in a few notable straight-to-video action films like Midnight Heat and One Tough Bastard, directed by Kurt Wimmer, who later went on to make Equilibrium. But it seems Bosworth either didn't like those projects or they didn't do well enough, because after a few more mediocre films, he made the jump to TV series. Olivier Gruner broke into Hollywood around the late 80s and early 90s. At the time, audiences were into action flicks where the main guy had to fight his way to the top. Literally. Gruner first worked as a stunt double and technical advisor on films like that. For example, he did work on Lionheart, starring the famous Belgian. Producers quickly noticed his moves, and in 1990, he got his shot. Director Eric Carson, who had directed the hit The Octagon and Van Damme's Black Eagle, offered him the lead role in Angel Town. Angel Town hit US theaters with a budget similar to Bloodsport, but lightning didn't strike twice. Bloodsport made $12 million on a $1.5 million budget, while Angel Town only brought in $800,000. Gruner's next film, Nemesis, also hit theaters. Directed by Albert Pyun, it continued his cyborg universe. But unlike Pyun's 1989 film Cyborg, Nemesis, which had the same budget, only made $2 million, compared to Cyborg's $10 million. After that, Gruner moved on to the world of direct-to-video. To be fair, some of his B-movies were actually pretty decent, for the time and for what they were. Gary Daniels' case is a little more complicated. He did appear on the big screen in the early 90s with a supporting role in Jackie Chan's action comedy City Hunter. Before that, Daniels had only done TV movies. His big shot came in 1995, when he landed the lead role in a film adaptation of the famous Japanese manga Fist of the North Star. The budget was $7 million. Not huge, but it had backing from Warner Brothers. The director, Tony Randall, had previously worked on Hellraiser, a successful horror film. But luck wasn't on Daniels' side. Fist of the North Star was originally planned for a US theatrical release, but after it bombed in several countries, including Japan, Warner Brothers pulled it and dumped it straight to video. After that, Daniels never got another decent role and stuck to the direct-to-video market. Unlike Gruner and Daniels, Don the Dragon Wilson actually appeared on the big screen pretty often in the 80s, but his roles were usually minor, sometimes barely noticeable. For example, he showed up in John Cusack's Say Anything, and in Chuck Norris's Delta Force 2. His big break came with Blood Fist. Riding the wave of popularity for similar films, Blood Fist was made for just $500,000 and brought in almost $2 million. Sure, that's not Van Damme money, but it was still a solid return for a low-budget flick. Just a year later, Blood Fist 2 hit theaters, but it didn't have the same success. With a higher budget and only $1.2 million at the box office, it didn't break even. After that, Don the Dragon Wilson shifted to direct-to-video, though he occasionally showed up in theaters. If you look closely, you can spot him in Batman Forever, though you'll probably need to know exactly when to pause. Interestingly, even though Blood Fist stopped hitting theaters after the third installment, it kept going as a straight-to-video series. A total of 9 films were released by 2005, so apparently the franchise still made money. The last actor we'll talk about is Mark Dacascos. Mark had multiple chances to break through. His career started strong. After landing a few supporting roles in well-known American TV series like Tales from the Crypt, he got a shot at leading a small feature film. His first lead role turned into a breakout moment. While Only the Strong didn't do huge numbers in theaters, it became a home video hit and was well received by both critics and audiences. But Mark couldn't keep that momentum. In the mid-90s, Hollywood went all in on movies based on video games. Even Jean-Claude Van Damme got caught in the trend, starring in the disaster that was Street Fighter. Mark also decided to take a shot, with Double Dragon, based on the classic video game series. The film didn't even recoup its modest budget. Worse yet, critics and audiences alike absolutely hated it. Surprisingly, after that flop, Mark got another big opportunity. Whether it was luck or persistence, French director Christophe Gans cast him in Crying Freeman. It was Dascus' first big-budget film. Oddly enough, while Crying Freeman now has a strong fan following, it was a total flop in 1995, both in France and the US, despite getting good reviews. After that, Dascus stopped getting lead roles in major films and switched to direct-to-video, trying to land at least supporting roles in bigger productions. The Island of Dr. Moreau could have been a turning point, but the movie went through production hell, and when it finally hit theaters, it was a bomb. After that, Dascus was locked into the B-movie world. What's interesting is that unlike most actors who get stuck in B-movies, Dascus had not one, but 2 or even 3 more chances. But somehow, even after 2 box office successes, Boogie Boy and Brotherhood of the Wolf, his career didn't take off. Boogie Boy, where Mark played the lead, made $67 million globally on a $5 million budget. The problem might have been that both films were European and barely made a splash in the US, or maybe Mark just got paid more for taking roles in straight-to-video flicks like Scorcher and Final Approach, which have pretty low ratings. In the early 2000s, Dascus had one more movie released in theaters, Cradle to the Grave, where he played a supporting role, but that movie didn't do well either. Since then, he's only appeared in ultra-low-budget films that look like they cost $1. With age, like Dolph Lundgren, Mark got a second wind. He started popping up in quality TV shows and supporting roles. He even appeared in John Wick 3, but the time he lost in the late 90s and early 2000s can't be recovered. It's a shame, because Mark is one of the few actors whose B-movies were often actually pretty good. Just watch Drive and you'll see. It's unfortunate his career didn't take off. Maybe he made the wrong choices. Or maybe this is exactly where he wants to be. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and stay tuned.